regardless of the other things she believes, people argue that she's a little too right on certain issues, like with the woke stuff, whatever. She's been very consistent on this war thing. And I want to show you now what she's doing to kind of affect the political climate on this issue, because I thought this was a very interesting conversation, and it's also not very long. So let's check this out right here. This is Tulsi talking to RFK Jr., talking to Russell Brand.
Russell, two main things that I would encourage people to look to is, first of all, look at what President Trump has talked about in conversations that both Bobby and I have had with him separately, but also things that he's said publicly numerous times in different interviews, different podcasts. When he's asked, how would you do things differently? He admits that he had a lot of bad people around him before, that when he won the election, he was confronted immediately with a very urgent task of staffing an entire federal government. He took the advice of a lot of people who are the swamp creatures of Washington, telling him, here's who you need to have in this position, here's who you need to have in that position. And I know for a fact that these people were doing this and being very nice to him and very kind to him and trying to get on his good side in order to maneuver into place with the sole purpose of mitigating what they viewed would be his disastrous effect on the country, i.e. him getting in the way of the military-industrial complex. So it was very intentional.
I want to pause here for a second, because they said this out loud. If you remember, like, all the anti-Trump people literally would come out and be like, we're going to do everything we can to stop his agenda from internally. So she actually brings proofs to the table right here too. Listen to this.
For people like John Bolton to put themselves in position, like Nikki Haley to put herself in position, and many, many others. I know I was serving in Congress on the Armed Services Committee at the time, and there were a number of examples where President Trump publicly gave a very clear directive of a clear action. And we had both political appointees within the State Department as well as uniformed officers within the Department of Defense who, behind closed doors for a long time, said, we're slow rolling it, we're blocking it, we disagree with his decision and his directive, and so we are trying to roll this out for as long as we possibly can and just not tell him that we're not doing what he told us to do. And for me, whether I agreed or disagreed with President Trump's decision, that infuriated me, because that directly goes to the heart of our democracy. What good is it if we go and vote for someone for president only to have a bunch of appointees and bureaucrats go and block the person that the American people voted for? That's not how this process works.
This makes me wonder why she endorsed Biden in 2020. Especially after the Democrats smeared her like they did as a Russian and everything. But it seems like, again, the reason I did that retrospective on her was just to show you how hard she tried to get her views mainstreamed in the Democratic Party and was just stomped out at every step of the way by the leadership, people like Hillary Clinton and anyone that was calling her a Russian at the time. And now she's kind of found this new alliance with RFK and Trump, where she's saying exactly the same thing, but she's also, it sounds like, in line for a position in a Trump administration if that happens. And if you listen to her talk right here, she just gave you the receipts that when she was on the security commission or whatever commission she was on that she mentioned, she saw people visibly saying, hey, we're going to try to sink this agenda because we don't want Trump to draw down wars and all that kind of stuff. So I think, just to kind of cap that off, one of the biggest criticisms I hear from left commentators about Trump is that, oh, well, he already proved that he's going to do war. He did plenty of war. He assassinated the Soleimani guy. He did this and that. He was one of the first people who, allowed weapons shipments to go to Ukraine. Obama wouldn't even do that. And that's true. But Tulsi's telling you right here, there was an organized effort within his own team, people that he selected to subvert his will on those issues.
So President Trump, and then of course, one of these guys in particular who was dealing with Syria and Turkey and different parts of the Middle East, a guy named Jeffrey James, he came out publicly while Trump was still in office and was touting to the press that he was doing the exact opposite of what President Trump told him to do. And of course, he got a bunch of attaboys and pats on the back for protecting the country and the world, in their words, from Donald Trump. When really what Donald Trump was trying to do was prevent war and bring our troops home. That's what he was trying to do, and that's what they were trying to block him from doing. President Trump has learned many important lessons from that first term in office, and the fact that he has welcomed our support, and not only welcomed it in the sense of words, but the fact that Bobby Kennedy and I, as we speak, are actively helping to choose the right people to staff the government should President Trump get elected. It shows his commitment to making sure that there are people up and down the federal government who are committed to the Constitution and who are committed to putting the interests of the American people first, and not worried about what their next job in politics might be, or are they going to get a good gig on some cable TV show, or making the lobbyists happy. We're talking about
that is so key right there. That is so goddamn key. And I didn't notice that the first time, but what she just said is so key, because that is why they want someone like Nikki Haley, or, you know what I mean, one of these establishment hacks, because they're going to be worried about their political career and where they go next. Trump doesn't have that worry. He's not trying to, this would be a lame duck Trump. And I wanted to show you this clip. I pulled this up.
Listen, I think you need someone to go burn it all down.
Yes.
Trump as a lame duck is actually much better than someone that has to get reelected again and has to play that game. I want someone who will go in there and literally burn it to the ground, because it needs to be that. Like I used to believe, guys, like, even when I got into this, I functioned at a high level in business, and we did billion-dollar deals and, real shit. And, I got there and was like, well, listen, this is what America is. And I believe this, and I'm a patriot. And I'm like, oh my God, even, once I went through what I went through with Russia, 50 hours of testimony and Adam Schiff up there saying I committed treason somehow. And then I see, well, of course, nothing happens with that. Of course, none of that was actually accurate. It was all a perjury trap, hoping that in 50 hours of testimony asking me the same.
So you get the idea. My favorite part of that clip is when Trump Jr. goes, "We're literally burn it down," and Tim's like, "Whoa, you mean figuratively? You mean figuratively burn it down, not literally." Let me let Tulsi finish here, and then I got a couple more clips for you.
About people who really care and have dedicated their lives to service in their profession and actually making a difference. The second thing I'll just mention briefly, Bobby, and I think you're going to talk about this too, is for those of your friends or your family or people who who just can't imagine themselves voting for Donald Trump, I encourage you just to share the facts and the realities of the disastrous policies that we are seeing and how they are impacting our everyday lives all across this country, whether it's the cost of living and the cost of fuel and high interest rates and high mortgages and all of high insurance rates going down the line. But fundamentally, as Russell talked about, as we've talked about, fundamentally, how our free speech, our fundamental freedoms are being taken away, and they're being taken away in the name of, don't worry, we know what's better for you more than you do. We, the government, are going to protect you from yourselves and from others. And once we lose those freedoms, we will lose our country.
So
I'm going to jump up. There's another little piece of this I want to show you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about RFK. But in this next little bit here, RFK kind of describes what he's working on. And I found this to be very interesting as well, just kind of continuing with this theme here of people who have defected from the Democratic Party, but who have been consistent. Their defection from the Democratic Party is not based on anything that they've done. Their views are consistent and have been for a long time. It's the Democratic Party and the quote unquote left that has changed. So check this out. Here's RFK talking about a little bit more detail about what's going on.
And I think it would make us all proud to be Americans. I want to add something first to what Tulsi said. The incoming president is going to have to make 14,000 appointments. And President Trump has done something. He made this mistake before, which he admitted. He said, I appointed, because under this bad advice, I appointed a lot of bad people. And that's a quote. And he said, I'm not going to do that this time. And he's put his money where his mouth is.
I love that. Just quick sidebar. He's like, he appointed a lot of bad people. And that's a quote. That sounds like a Trump quote. Bad people. I appointed a lot of bad people.
Is literally normally every transition team in history begins on November 6th, the day after election day, and the GAO pays for it, the General Accounting Office. And then you go through the process of your policies and your personnel for the next administration. President Trump, when he came in 2016, told me I had no idea how to govern. I didn't know anything about it, and I took advice from sketchy people. This time he's doing something differently. Instead of relying on GAO, which would make him have to wait till November 6th, he got private donors to contribute money to open up a transition team early, 3 months early. So we're going to have a lot of time to pick this person out. And he kept his word to me by pointing me and Tulsi to that transition team. So we are going to be choosing those 14,000 people who are going to be governing this country. And what President Trump has told us is he's not scared of anybody. He said, I'm not scared of pharma. I'm not scared of any of these big industries. I'll leave a legacy for this country. And one of the key parts of that legacy is to make America healthy again. So
I thought that's kind of like breaking news. They are already working on a transition team. If you heard what he just said, they're already, and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard are in charge of it. So that just shows you, how the dynamics have shifted. And when it comes to RFK, there's a lot of people in the left, talk space that hate his guts and call him a fraud and, all this stuff. He is a little eccentric, with the falconry and even in this Tulsi Gabbard thing, I cut it out, but there's a part where he's like totally, you can tell he's like he's totally buttering up Tulsi Gabbard. He's like, oh, wouldn't it be so inspiring if Tulsi Gabbard was the first female president of our country, and she's just blushing and, oh, thank you, But this is another guy who is consistent. And the thing that's mind-blowing to me about the liberal hatred for RFK Jr. is for years and years, he was a regular guest on Bill Maher talking about the environment. And I'm just going to play you a clip I dug up of that. HBO be damned. But watch this. This is from, I believe, 20.
Lifelong champion of the environment who appears in the documentary Trace Amounts, available now online, and is the editor of The Mirasol, Let the Science Speak, a book on the... Kennedy Jr. is back with us. Robert, it's been so long. How are you? You look great. Well, okay, so I saw you have a full-page ad that you printed in USA Today about this issue, the Marisol, which is the preservative, the mercury-based preservative in vaccines. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to put it in context. You are one of the greatest environmental crusaders we've ever had, so I'm assuming...
One of the greatest environmental crusaders we've ever had. Bill Maher's words, not mine.
I don't think anyone would dispute that.
I don't think anyone would dispute that.
Your history with mercury goes back a long way. I mean, you're into the vaccine thing now, but you've gotten it out of rivers, right?
I got
Listen to this grifter.
I got dragged into the vaccine issue kind of kicking and screaming because I was going around the country suing coal burning power plants and talking about the dangers of mercury coming from those plants. And almost everywhere I stopped or I spoke, there were women there, very eloquent, articulate, grounded people who were saying, look, you have to look at the biggest vector of mercury in American children now is coming from vaccines, and we need you to look at the science. And I resist.
It's funny because even I think back when this originally aired, even I was like, this guy's kind of a kook. A lot of people always viewed this guy as a kook. The COVID thing definitely changed my perception on this kind of stuff. I'm not going to lie. Because before this, I was all in on all that stuff. I was like, oh, that's just Jenny McCarthy anti-vax conspiracies.
For a long time, but I started reading the science after a while. And I'm very comfortable reading science. I've brought hundreds and hundreds of successful lawsuits. Almost all of them have involved scientific controversy. So I'm good. I'm comfortable reading science and dissecting it and discerning the difference between junk science and real science. And when I started looking at it, what I saw was very alarming, which we were giving huge amounts of mercury to our children. A lot of it has been taken out of vaccines, but there's still an extraordinary amount still in them.
So I just wanted to show that again with this theme of consistency, because RFK Jr. is a guy who has been consistent, you know, regardless of what he's saying about Israel on the campaign trail, because he's taken those sweet Zionist dollars. Him and Tulsi Gabbard have been consistent throughout. So I wouldn't doubt that because of their involvement with the Trump campaign, they have to be a little more careful about how they discuss the war in Gaza and Lebanon now. But if you just look at their actions as people and who they are, look at Tulsi Gabbard, for example. That's a person who stuck to her guns because she has been to war. She's seen it. So she spent, you know, years and years saying the same thing, and she's still saying the same thing, but political alignments have changed. So RFK Jr. and Tulsi, I think, have the benefit of the doubt from me in the fact that, you know, when I look at their past actions and their trajectory and their history as people, they're definitely genuinely good people who have been doing, you know, been on the right side of history for the most part throughout their careers. So